Lisa Miller's with Newsweek, and she wrote about Glenn Beck and Mitt Romney and their relationship to right-wing voters in an article called Not Too Mormon, which, of course, you can find on Newsweek and Newsweek.com. All right, Lisa, welcome back to the Young Turks.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
All right, great to have you here. So you point out that Glenn Beck is Mormon, and it seems like right-wing America is perfectly happy with that. So are we over the issue of whether a Mormon can win a Republican primary like Mitt Romney?
Well, one of the things that Richard Land said to me, and he's the president of the ethics branch of the Southern Baptist Convention, he said one of the things that's appealing about Beck is that he's not too Mormon. That's my language, but what Land said is he's not pushing his Mormon, faith on anybody, and the other thing he said to me, which is not in the story, is that when you look at Romney, you see sort of a professional Mormon. You think of him as Mormon, whereas Beck, he's not specific about his faith. He's not preachy. He doesn't talk about, anything theological or scary. And so he comes across as kind of generic Christian, which the conservative evangelicals can get behind.
Lisa, I find all this fascinating because to me, I see all the same, because I'm agnostic. I wasn't raised in a Christian upbringing here in the United States. So, I see Richard Land, I see Mitt Romney. They all look the same to me. But, they got their old fights from back in the day. So I'm having trouble comprehending what they're saying. So break it down for me. What does he mean that Romney is more professional Mormon?
Well, I don't know. When you're in a sort of religious tribe, you look at other religious tribes with suspicion. I think that's common in America. It's happened for centuries here. And there is stuff about the Mormon theology having to do with the Trinity that conservative evangelicals don't believe is actually Christian. And in fact, this is interesting. When you call a Mormon a Christian in a story in Newsweek, for example, you get all of these letters from evangelicals saying that Mormons aren't Christian. But if you make a distinction between Mormons and other Christians in a Newsweek article, you get all these letters from Mormons talking about how Christian they are. So this is some very fine point, a theological debate. But the point is that conservative evangelicals have not traditionally regarded Mormons as Christians. And so the rap on Romney in 2008 was that he couldn't get elected because conservative evangelicals didn't regard him as Christian and, moreover, regarded Mormonism as something like a cult. And so they wouldn't vote for him because he was too scary.
I'm amused by the idea of the Southern Baptists finding anybody else too scary.
That was the rap, right? And so here you have Glenn Beck, who is also a Mormon. And I think if you asked Beck, he would say he is as Mormon as Mitt Romney is. He, ties to the church. He's observant. He's devout. He credits his Mormon faith with having helped him through his recovery. His family is Mormon. And yet there's something about him that doesn't rub conservative Christians the wrong way.
That's interesting. I thought he converted. Do I know that wrong? His family's always been Mormon?
No, he did convert, and his wife converted also, and they're raising their children as Mormons.
Okay. Oh, I see. His family, as in so his wife converted as well, so his nuclear family is now Mormon.
Yeah.
Do you know? I know this is not in your article, but do you know why he converted to, of all things, Mormonism?
The story goes that he was a rage-filled addict, like a lot of people, and he was out of control, and he went into recovery, and like a lot of people started looking for a higher power, looking for something that made sense to him, and he met his wife, and together they started looking for a church, and the one he liked the best, I'm sort of paraphrasing his story here, was the Latter-day Saints, based on, visiting a lot of different kinds of churches. And he made a commitment to the Latter-day Saints, and he was baptized, I don't know how many years ago, but he's serious about it. He speaks as if he's serious about it.
That's awesome. Leave it to Glenn Beck to go looking for a religion and come up with Mormonism. So he thought, let me put on the story where they put on the magic glasses and look at the magic rock made sense.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to go there. I think, all religions have their their unbelievable, supernatural, crazy-sounding aspects. And if you're, I'm not going to say that the burning bush is crazier or less crazy than the angel Moroni, or the angel Moroni is crazier or less crazy than the carpenter who rose from the dead after 3 days.
And walked on water and turned water into wine. So,
right.
Lisa, no, don't get me wrong, I'm with you. And look, I left my faith because I thought that was crazy too. So it depends on how you look at it. I get it, and I don't want to beat up on Mormons. In fact, I don't see them as any different than Christians, just because. And so that leads to the second issue in my mind, right? Now, I think they brought you. By the way, just as a quick aside, they brought Jesus Christ all the way to Missouri, and they still don't get called Christians. That doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, I mean that's what they would say.
Right. So, anyway, I think though that the way current politics is going, Lisa, and we're talking to Lisa Miller from Newsweek who wrote about this. I think they're going to get beyond that really quick, because I think they're circling the wagon, saying, "Look, you're roughly white Christians. We got more things to worry about. We got these Mexicans. We got these Muslims. We got this Obama fellow from Kenya or wherever he's from. Let's circle the wagons." Don't you think that that's, I mean, because remember how much the Protestants and the Catholics used to fight?
Right. I mean,
all of a sudden they don't fight at all.
This was in the story. This would be a very productive alliance, white evangelicals and Mormons, in terms of some of these social issues that you're talking about. I mean, as you say, white evangelicals and Catholics joined forces in 1980 to really fight abortion and to make abortion an issue that actually helped Ronald Reagan get elected in 1980. And, you know, until that point, as you remember, Catholics and Protestants were sworn enemies. You know, John F. Kennedy had to get up and say, you know, I'm not a papist. I'm not going to be controlled by the Vatican. That was his issue. And it was because America was a Protestant country and they didn't trust Catholics to be American. I mean, if you're going to put it that way. So Mormons are very similar in that regard right now. There's a kind of fundamental mistrust of Mormons that's analogous to the mistrust of Catholics.
No, I'm amused by this whole thing, because they're trying to figure out who to hate next, right? They're like, well, we used to hate the papists. I love that, papists. So, but then it turns out there was too little of us, so we had to bring them into the fold. We used to hate the Mormons because they were kooky and a cult. But now, I mean, we got other people to hate. We got too many other people to hate. We got to band together, especially because we all hate the gays.
Right. Well, the Mormons, I think the Mormons got some cred with the evangelicals over Prop 8 in California. As you remember, the Mormons were very activist in, you know, in throwing their weight against gay marriage in California. And I think that at that moment, it may be that the evangelicals thought, okay, well, we can form a really important and productive alliance here. And so I did talk to a sociologist at Rice University who's also very knowledgeable about sort of evangelicals and politics, Michael Lindsay, and he said, you know, the Glenn Beck thing, the fact that leaders of the religious right are supporting Glenn Beck may be a floater for 2012. It may be a way of kind of testing the waters and seeing whether conservative Christians will tolerate Mormons enough to support Romney in 2012. And I think that's really interesting.
Well, that is interesting. Well, there's two quick, you know, follow-ups I want to do on that. One is, I don't think anybody knows Glenn Beck's Mormon. You know, he hardly ever talks about it. So, and when I say anybody, I don't mean the leadership. Obviously, they're aware, right? But I mean actual Christian right folks throughout the country.
Right, there was a poll. There was actually a poll on this. Only 17% of Americans knew that Glenn Beck was Mormon. So it's not something that's well known about him.
Right. So I'm not sure that that's a very good test. And then number two, I'm not sure how much these religious leaders have sway anymore. I mean, I'd like to ask you about that, because my sense of it is, if Fox News says something is okay, then it's okay in the right wing in this country. And so I think Fox News has so much more power than the Richard Lands of the world. Am I misreading that?
I would not underestimate the power of the establishment religious right. I think that the media has been very quick to call those folks dead and over and dinosaurs for a couple of election cycles now. And I think they are still behind the scenes, and I think they're still, you know, kingmakers and queenmakers very much. They influence other politicians, and they and they can move votes. So I wouldn't count them out.
Lisa, one last quick question. Do you get any sense of who they would rather have as the Republican candidate? I mean, do they, if you ask them about Sarah Palin, do they get all excited, or is there only one guy that they seem to like so far, or not?
I actually think that, and this was sort of the implicit point of the story, I think that a lot of these conservative religious right leaders are going to throw their weight behind Romney. And I think that, they are part of the right-wing establishment, a lot of them. And they want a conservative leader who they feel comfortable with. And I think, in fact, many of them are going to feel more comfortable with Romney than they do with Palin.
Yeah, God, that's really interesting. See, because we just had a conversation with Eric Bowler from Media Matters. He thinks Fox News is going to have a candidate, and since Romney's not on there, it can't be Romney. And that if they pick Sarah Palin or someone else, Romney's in a world of trouble. So, God, there's a lot of interesting things at play here. As soon as we get past 2010, you know that this is all that anybody's going to talk about.
That's right. I think the Republican Party is the story for the next 2 years.
Yeah. All right, Lisa Miller from Newsweek. Really interesting article. Thank you so much for joining us.
Take care.
Yep. We'll be right back.